Welcome back, football fans, and thank you for tuning in. Sebastian Fearon here, Doctor of Physical Therapy, working with the guys over at the Sports Gambling Podcast. So we are here for another edition of breaking down the Thursday Night Football injury report and then looking ahead at some big fantasy football injuries later on in the week. So let's get started with NFL Week 6. We have the 4-1 Tampa Bay Buccaneers traveling to Philadelphia to take on the 2-3 Eagles. So let's go ahead and get it started with the Philadelphia Eagles injury report. They only have a couple guys out on offense there. They have starting right tackle Lane Johnson is out with a personal matter. I'm not really going to speculate what's going on here. This is his third straight missed game with the personal matter, so not really sure how long to expect him out, but it seems like it's going to be at least for a little bit more with him being out this week. Backup tackle Jack Driscoll, second-year guy out of Auburn, takes over at right tackle there. Now, this is kind of significant because the Bucs have a pretty good front seven, so they can get to the passer, and I think the Eagles are going to have to throw the ball a decent amount this game to be able to be in it. So this kind of, has a decent effect on the offense there. So moving forward, we have Dallas Goedert, starting tight end for the Eagles. He's likely going to be out. He tested positive for COVID this week. There's a slight chance he plays, but at this point, I would expect him to be out and plan for that accordingly in fantasy. He was the team's third leading receiver, so this is a hit to their passing offense. They're going to need guys like Zach Ertz, the backup tight end there, to step up and start producing like he did in years when he was younger. And then guys like Devonta Smith and Kenny Gainwell, they're going to get more opportunities as far as looks in the receiving game there. So moving along to the Tampa Bay Buccaneers side of the field, we got Rob Gronkowski, starting tight end for them. He's going to be out this week with a rib injury. Now, this is his third game missed. So Gronk got injured in the Week 3 matchup against the Rams. He took a hard hit to the ribs, went to the locker room, got an x-ray. The x-ray came back negative, so they put him back in the game. He even had a reception. Now, fast forward with MRI and CT scans, further imaging, they found that he actually has multiple fractured ribs and a punctured lung. So I think this points out a couple things. One, with rib injuries, which is very common, x-rays aren't really sufficient to show you the actual damage done usually. So if you have a player or someone on your team that you hear they have, bruised ribs or a rib injury and x-rays come back negative, you're not out of the woods yet. They're still, just like Rob Gronkowski, just like Tua, they were initially given good news, and then they find out that they do actually have some fractures in there. So just something to take note there. As far as I think who's going to get the biggest boost here is really Antonio Brown has been seeing a lot of targets with Gronk out of the lineup, and he's been producing. I also think Leonard Fournette has seen a boost in receptions coming out of the backfield. I think who it doesn't benefit really is the tight ends here. Gronk's been out. Again, this will be his third week out. The tight ends, backup Cameron Brate and O.J. Howard, they've not produced much at all this year, even when Gronk was out of the lineup. Both those guys have under 100 yards receiving to the season to this point through 5 games. So I really look for Antonio Brown and Leonard Fournette to get some more targets there. Going over to the defense, so the Bucs are missing star linebacker Levante David. He's out with an ankle injury he suffered last week. He came out in the second quarter. So the good news here is that the x-rays here were negative, and it's being called a low ankle sprain, which is much better than a high ankle sprain. The difference being, low ankle sprain is the injury to the lateral ligaments of your ankle. When you roll your ankle, the foot goes inward, the typical, ankle sprain we think about. That's what he's dealing with. It's not as serious as the high ankle sprain that guys like Jerry Jeudy and some others have dealing with that can really cause some issues. So good news there. With a 10 days rest, he may be able to come back next week. We'll have to monitor. But he's being replaced by a rookie, KJ Britt, coming out of Auburn, linebacker. He's got very little experience. So that's kind of a big hole for that Buccaneers defense right in the middle there. And then moving forward, the Bucs are going to be missing 3 starters in their secondary. Now, one of them is Antoine Winfield, the concussion he suffered 2 weeks ago. He's going to be out again. Mike Edwards is going to be stepping in for them, who does have some experience at safety because Jordan Whitehead was out earlier this year. But their starting cornerbacks to start the year, Carlton Davis and Sean Murphy-Bunting, are both on IR. Murphy-Bunting had that nasty elbow dislocation we saw week 1, and then Carlton Davis got put on IR with a quad injury recently against a week ago. So, this is kind of a big deal with them having their starting cornerbacks out now. I will say that they have Richard Sherman, who they picked up later in the year, definitely a veteran with a decent amount of experience, and Jamel Dean stepping in. and those guys both have experience, but they're very thin at the cornerback position. And with Lavonte David being out as well, I think this game's going to come down to if the Eagles can take advantage of the Buccaneers' pass defense being vulnerable. This is already a team that's allowing 328 yards through the air compared to only 46 on the ground, but can the Eagles keep pace? They're only averaging about 23 points a game, while the Bucs are averaging up to 33 points a game. So the opportunity's there. We're going to see if guys like Jalen Hurts, Devontae Smith, and Quez Watkins can really take an opportunity of this vulnerable pass defense. Last thing to note is Tom Brady has dealing with a minor thumb injury. He says he's good to go. It's not anything serious, so I'm going to trust Tom Brady here because he seems to always play and produce even with these minor injuries. Moving forward to some guys later on in the week, let's go ahead and start off with Curtis Samuel, wide receiver for the Washington football team. This is a tough case. He was dealing with a groin injury back in June, was out for 3 months, came back the first week of practice, re-injured it, ended up on the IR for 3 games, came back, week 5, his second game back, he now re-injured the groin again. So this has been someone who I've been concerned about since the preseason. The groin allows you to change correct directions quickly, which is something he needs as a speedy wide receiver. So this is very concerning. He's labeled as week to week, but they really need to keep this monitored closely to avoid a severe injury and losing him for the majority of the season. I think, guys, Terry McLaurin's already their number one. Past him, Adam Humphries is the only guy who's proven to do something in the NFL. So as far as the fantasy boost, definitely McLaurin, you're already starting him. Humphries, maybe if he can step up there, but it's kind of a question mark behind McLaurin in that offense. Going on to Juju Smith-Schuster, wide receiver for the Pittsburgh Steelers. Unfortunately, he may have played his last snap as a Pittsburgh Steeler. He suffered a hard hit to his shoulder in the second quarter against the Broncos, and he dislocated his shoulder and is going to need surgery. So that hit forced the shoulder out of its joint, out of its socket enough to where they feel like surgery is the only way to repair it. So this is something that Juju needs to definitely work on rehab-wise, because this is something that can lead to further dislocation problems in the future. Now, we have to remember that Juju was on only a 1-year deal in Pittsburgh. He tried free agency and went back to Pittsburgh only for a year. The plan was to produce and then hit the market again this offseason. So it's definitely unfortunate for him. As far as the Steelers go, they definitely have capable receivers to replace him. As far as Deontay Johnson, Chase Claypool, and James Washington will all see a boost in targets with this injury. Then moving on to Daniel Jones, dealing with a concussion, quarterback for the New York Giants. He was concussed last week against the Cowboys on a hard helmet-to-helmet hit on the goal line. We all saw him get up woozy and take a couple stumbling steps. Actually, good news coming out of the Giants right now. He's in a concussion protocol, but he did not practice, but was on the field in full pads, sprinting, throwing passes. So monitor his situation week to week. He's going to have to clear those steps, but he definitely has a chance to play on Sunday. And that will definitely boost guys like Kadarius Toney and Sterling Shepard, who should be back this week. Let's go ahead and look at Clyde Edwards-Helaire, running back for the Kansas City Chiefs. He's already had kind of a disappointing season, and now he's going to miss some time. He's on IR with a MCL sprain. That's the inner ligament in your knee. Deals with the stability as far as side to side and allows you to be able to cut properly and change direction quickly. So he's going to be missing at least 3 weeks, maybe 4 weeks, depending on how severe that injury is. And guys, as far as a fantasy boost, we have running backs Darrell Williams and Jerick McKinnon. Williams is slated to get the most work right now, but we'll see, both veteran guys, both pass catchers out of the backfield. So we'll see how they replace him there. And then last, let's end with some positive news with Joe Burrow. He was taken to the hospital after last week's game with a throat contusion. Basically means there's swelling and bruising of the throat musculature. This seems to be precautionary because it's such an important area. It helps to control your breathing, eating, and speaking. Apparently he was having trouble speaking. He had a full practice on Wednesday. The expectation is he's going to have a sore throat for a little while. They're calling it, he's on voice rest as far as resting the throat, but he should be good to go. All right, guys, as always, I post an article every week with a fantasy football injury report, and then I'm doing a college football injury report over at sportsgamblingpodcast.com. And then follow me on Twitter for the latest injury news and updates as far as we go there.